Welcome, EienKibou here, and today I'm going to be reacting to the live letter. Final Fantasy 14 letter from the producer. This will be part 58, I think. And pretty excited about what they might announce. I think that today they're going to go over what is to be next for the next 10 years of Final Fantasy 14. And I'm guessing they would also touch the topic of class balance and perhaps some information on the new ultimate, perhaps some information on all the farm stuff for the next patch 6.1. But I'm expecting to be a combination of those two. You know, we're here for whatever they want to reveal. Check on my audio, 1 second here. Seems to be working just fine. I don't think we can see the actual chat on YouTube, so maybe I should just hide it. Let me see. I'm gonna leave it for now. Write something down. We should be like a couple minutes before the live starts, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, guys, let me know what you're excited about for 6.1 and the next expansion, which you will probably not know until the year before that. But we should be able to guess somewhat from the next few patches, right? 6.1 through 6.3 should somewhat expand the story further to other reflections, perhaps, or other planets, and perhaps give us an idea of what to expect for an expansion. We'll see. Anyway, guys, myself, I'm really wanting to see something for the ultimate and perhaps some changes for PvP, some more information. I hope it would be more clear about how the new ranked PvP system is going to work. I know there's going to be rewards for the PvP season pass each thingy, but I hope that they really revamp their model for rewards and PvP ranked, because I feel like the previous PvP mode was atrocious, both in the system and in the community. We didn't have enough players, and the players that we did have were kind of toxic, so I hope we can bring fresh blood to the PvP mode as the patch 6.1 comes in. But we'll see, I guess. I also haven't played PvP in a few months, so this might be the thing to bring me back to PvP. I also like how they delayed the PvP season starting after we get their Savage content, so we don't have to worry about both at the same time. That's very nice. Because usually we'll have to worry about PvP and PvE at the same time. Anyway, the live stream should be starting anytime now. So let me just figure out if the audio is working for you guys. It's working now. Oh, I have a typo on my title one. Producer, not producers. Alright, seems good. Chat seems to be asking for Dark Knight changes. Honestly, I think Dark Knight is fine. I mean, we could use some utility brought into the Dark Knight kit, but outside of that, Dark Knight is fine. I think White Mage is the class that probably has it worse right now. Perhaps even a little bit more buffs to Paladin would be nice. I mean, there are so many jobs right now that need help that I don't think that giving attention to Dark Knight in the place where they are right now would be imperative. I mean, all changes are welcome, right? But I think that White Mage is the job that requires most help right now. Which I know that developers already are taking care of that, so we should be seeing some kind of buff to White Mage in the future. Perhaps they can make it so that the Lily combo is dealing more potency damage than the Glare combo, so we'll see that in the future, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, overall, the classes are pretty balanced right now. Here we go, guys, let's go.
おはようございます。
おはようございます。
Hello everyone。第68回 Final Fantasy XIV プロデューサーレターライブをお送りいたします。Thank you very much for tuning in to Final Fantasy XIV Letter from the Producer Live number 68。皆さんに自己紹介お願いします。Please introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Naoki Yoshida, producer and director of Final Fantasy XIV。皆さんおはようございます。そしてこんばんはな人も多いですね。Final Fantasy XIV プロデューサー兼ディレクターの吉田です。よろしくお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。そして本日進行を務めますコミュニティチームモルボルこと室内です。よろしくお願いします。My name is Toshio Murochi, also known as the Fox Clone. You are global community producer here.I will do the MC stuff for today's live letter. はい、そして、本日はですね、本日の、プロデュ PLL も、日本語と英語のバイリンガル放送でお送りいたしますので、我らがあゆみさんがスクエニアメリカオフィスから入ってくださっております。So once again, today's letter live is fully bilingual in both Japanese and English. So we have a special member from Square Enix America office. あゆみさんです。おはようございます。
おはようございます。スクエアニックスアメリカの徳武あゆみです。通訳を務めさせていただきます。よろしくお願いします。Hello everyone, this is Aimi from the Square Enix Los Angeles office. I'm going to be supporting for the translations today.
はい。で本日の、PLL はですね、このセットアップをご覧になった方もいるかと思いますが、吉田さんが話したことは、あゆみさんが通訳してくださいます。で私が喋ることは私が自分で、翻訳しながら進めていきますので、で私からは大して重要な話は出ませんので、私のことを翻訳し忘れてるなというのはスルーしておいていただければと思いますのでよろしくお願いします。So today's setup is 吉田さんexplain things in Japanese and then あゆみさん will do 吉田さん voice in English and I will translate myself。はい、そして今日の PLL はですね、前半戦はFinal Fantasy XIV の新たなる挑戦、次の10年に向けてということで吉田さんからいろいろご説明いただきます。そして後半はですね休憩挟みまして後半は、フォーラムで事前に募集しました、パッチ 6.0 をプレイしてみての、Q&A セッションをお送りしたいと思います。So today's letter live has two major parts and then first half is the kind of presentation by producer director Naoki Yoshida, which is where we are and where we are going for next 10 years. And then we have a taking break, and then latter half is the Q&A session based on your gameplay of 6.0 expansion. はい。はい、ということで、始めてまいりたいと思います。
ですね、私がこっちを見てるとき、こうなってるときは皆さんのコメントを見てるときなので、今日こういうシチュエーションすごい多いと思うんで、ご理解ください。So
you might see me turning my head sometimes when I'm speaking, but I am actively looking at the comments that people are making as you watch the stream. So you may see me turned this way, but I am still participating. So just wanted to let you know.
まあちょっとね、日本のコメントでね、この手の通訳放送はテンポ悪いんだよなって言ってる人いるんですけど、まあグローバル全体でねお届けしているので、吉田の長い話をですね、あゆみさん一生懸命ね通訳してくれてるんで、そこはね、それを言われると我々ちょっと悲しくなるんで。そういうまあ、ファンフェスのステージぐらいで思って見てもらえると嬉しいかな。
And we do see some comments about how translations kind of drag on the pace. It doesn't feel as quick. But Amy is here to try to facilitate communicating Yoshida's comments. It makes us sad if you're disappointed that it's in two languages, but perhaps if you look at it like a FanFest stage event where we have the Japanese and English, maybe that might help it make it more fun.
あとコメントで今日は 6.1 はがっつりじゃないんですかっていうのもあるんですが、So we see some comments. Do we have any further updates for 6.1? So 6.1 がっつりってことだけはないんですよね。
そうですね、パッチ 6.1 の内容と紹介に関しては、3月4日、
はい、4日です
に、パッチ 6.1 特集パート1の PLL をやる予定なので、6.1 のまあでも今日ちょっと出ますけどね、6.1 の詳しいところはそっちに譲ります。
So yeah, today's broadcast is not literally going to be just about 6.1. We may touch upon it, but then the details are going to be explained on another episode of the live letter on March the 4th. This is JST, but we will go into details at that timing.
あとはまあなんかこう重大発表的なねニュアンスで取られてるけど楽しく気楽に行くので皆さんもですね緊張せず気楽に今日は見てもらえると嬉しいです。
And some people might be bracing for a very important announcement when we talk about today's broadcast, but that's not the intent. We would love for you to just relax and just have fun with the broadcast.
面白いですよ。
なんかこういうこと言うたびにさよしやめんのみたいなの出るんだよなついにこう俺さでもいつだっけ新情報発表会でさ、言ったばっかだよね。ライフワークだって言ってるんでそういう話じゃないんですよ。
I understand we were talking about like the future of Final Fantasy XIV, but every time we mention something like that, people are like, "Oh no, is Yoshida going to quit?" And no, I think I told us when we were doing our announcement showcase in February, it's like 14 is my life work. It's not like I'm going to just up and leave suddenly.
もうそんなんで嘘つきってやるの嫌だから、なんだろう、そんなね自分の去就をね重大発表しますみたいなねこと言わないですよ。
They can't get rid of him.
I don't want people to be going around saying, "Oh, you're such a liar," because I mean, I'm not the type of person who would make these kinds of like my personal announcements on a live stream. So.
さあでは、やっていきましょうか早速。前半だいたいね2時間ぐらい、後半も多分2時間ぐらい使うんじゃないかなと思います。なのでご飯食べたりですね今日土曜日なんで飲める人はお酒飲みながらとかでも全然いいので、楽しくいきましょう。
So we're looking at least for the first part, we're looking at about 2 hours broadcast. And so you're free to do like you have dinner or like eat lunch as you're watching the broadcast. It is a Saturday, so if you want to start drinking early, you're more than welcome to do so.
さあ行きましょう。では、画面切り替えてもらっていいかな。はい。はい。じゃあ早速いきますが、改めて今日お話しする内容のトピックおさらいしておきましょう。
Okay, so jumping right in, let me go over the topics we will cover.
で、まず一つ目はちょっとですね、まあ14これまで、正確にはね11年やってきているので、まあちょっと振り返りを最初にね、皆さんへの感謝も込めて、やりたいと思います。
The first topic, of course, it's been about 11 years to be accurate, how long 14 has been going on. So we'd like to kind of do a little bit of a retrospect, just convey our thanks to our players and look back on everything.
でまあそれを振り返った上でですね、まあちょっとこの先じゃあさらにもう10年は僕続けたいと思ってるんで、まあ、この先10年さらに14を発展させていくために、まあ、新しい挑戦やっていきますよといろいろそこについて、まあ、どんなことやっていくのかというのをお知らせしたいと思います。
And then once we do look back on our past, then we look forward to the next 10 years. Because as I mentioned, I would love to continue having Final Fantasy XIV for yet another 10 years. So there are many different things that we want to do in order to continue expanding Final Fantasy XIV, many challenges that we want to take on. So I want to touch upon some of those items in today's broadcast.
でここまでいったら1回休憩を挟んで、放送の後半として3つ目、パッチ 6.0 行月のフィナーレ、プレイしてみて何かありますかというので Q&A 事前に質問募集していましたのでそれに対していろいろお答えしていこうかなと思ってます。
And then once we do that, we will have a break in between, and then it'll go into the latter half of the show where we kind of asked the players, what did you think after playing 6.0? And so we will do a bit of an Endwalker Q&A.
あと10年間吉田リビングデッドを使う気だなみたいなコメントがあったりね。
We're seeing comments like, oh, 10 more years, huh? Is Yoshida going to kick off his living dead?
まああったよね確かにね吉田の量産を開始しましたとか、ね、クローンの吉田が誕生したので紹介しますとかそういうのじゃねえかって書かれてましたね。
But yeah, I think I've seen comments similar to that, and like people saying, "Oh, we have mass manufactured Yoshida clones."
でなぜか私はもう完了してますよって書いてあるんですよ。
そう。
Yeah, then I say I've done already. So something like that.
では早速いきましょうか。まずはまあ正確にはね11年なんですけど、大きくくくってまあ10年ここまで皆さんとねやってきたのをちょっと振り返っていきたいと思います。
Okay, so jumping into the timeline here, of course, accurately it's 11 years, but like we'll call this the 10 years of Final Fantasy 14.
まあいろいろありましたね。まあ2010年サービスを開始して、その12月に運営体制ね全部開発も、一新して、僕はここから参加ですね。
Did we really
So
have 4
first,
years of real revolt?
2010
Yeah, it
was
was
when
like
it all
3
started.
years, right?
Many things that happened caused us to sort of reconsider the development structures, and there was a lot of changes that were made in order to kind of reboot the title. So this is when Yoshida joined into the project.
で2021年の2011年の10月14日に、まあ、14日が縁起がいいだろうっていうので申請をやりますよという発表してますね。
And then 2011, October 14th, we were thinking 14th must bring us good luck. And that's when we announced that we are going to have Final Fantasy 14 Reborn.
海外の皆さん詳しいよね。あゆみさんもインタビューにいてくれたと思うけど、9番を遊んでみたいので9番のサーバーを復活させる気ありませんかってクラシックファイナルファンタジー14やる気ありませんかってナイトメアって答えたやつみんな覚えてて、ナイトメアってすげえ言ってんねコメントで。
ナイトメア。
I love how the comments from the West are. I love how they know all these details, and I'm sure Amy had sat into the interviews as well. But people were asking about, are you going to make an FF14 1.0 classic
no,
like
please
WoW
don't
Classic
do it.
did theirs? And Yoshida answered, "Nightmare," and so people are calling the time of 1.0 in Nightmare. It's awesome.
でまあ2012年の11月11日にですね、時代の終焉トレーラー公開とともにですね、一旦申請の準備のために Q14 のサービスを、終了させていただいてます。
And of course, in November 11th of 2012, we titled it The End of an Era, and we sort of closed the service for the original version of Final Fantasy 14.
まあ、9番からねやってくださってる方も結構いるし、9番の捉え方って結構まちまちだとは思うんですけど、9番のラスト付近はそれはそれでまた独特のゲームデザインの MMO として結構ね好きだった、面白くなったんだよって言ってくれる人たちもたくさんいて、まあ、僕らシャットダウンするのを決めながらも作ってたところに対してそういうね評価をもらってたりするのはとてもありがたいことなので、僕らもすごいね実は励みになってました。
And of course, people who have been playing since the original 1.0 may have their different opinions about how the game had played. But there were people who thankfully acknowledged how 14 was starting to shift, and they did take notice about how the game design was unique, despite we were looking to sunset the original version. And so it was wonderful that people acknowledged that, and that was very encouraging for us as a team.
ちなみに9番から今日視聴してくださってる方でQ14 からやってるよって方、どうですか？手を挙げてもらってもいいですか？
So if I could have people in the comments, by show of hands, I don't know how you raise your hands, but like anybody who's been playing since 1.0, the original Final Fantasy 14, we would love to see who's been with us since then.
めっちゃい
す
るな。
ごい There's a lot. Wow.
What?
Thank you very much.
すごいありがたい。
That's amazing. Thank you guys.
まあここからねあと10年お互い健康に気をつけて楽しんでいきましょう。
But yeah, we're looking forward to the next 10 years. So yeah, let's all take care of our health and keep going. That's awesome.
で、2013年ですね、ベータテストやりながら、2013年8月27日に ついに新生オルゼア正式サービス開始することができました。
So moving on, 2013, we start our beta testing for A Realm Reborn, and then August 27 of the same year, we were able to relaunch as A Realm Reborn.
振り返るとですね、2011年の3月ぐらいから一気に新生14の設計だけ5人ぐらいで設計をスタートして、2011年の6月から6人のプログラマーがコードを書き始めたのを覚えてるので、実質そこから2年2ヶ月で新生リリースしてるので、もうちょっと驚異的今振り返ると。
And looking back, so that it was 2011 in March, we started at least doing the framework, just the design structure first. And it was a very small team that worked on it. It was 5 people who started on the base framework. And then starting June of that same year, 2011, we had 6 programmers starting to write code. And considering it took about 2 years and 2 months to relaunch, that's just incredible.
で、念願だったですねファンフェスっていうのを2014年の10月からですね、スタートすることができました。今でも覚えてます。
And of course, by 2014, October, we were able to hold our very first fan festival. That was something that we really wanted to do.
初めてやった北米のファンフェスの基調公演でステージに上がった時の大歓声でですね、もう足が震えて
I still remember it today. The first time we did our fan festival, and we started out in the North America region. And when I took the stage to do my keynote presentation, and just the cheer that I received from the audience, man, my legs were shaking when I was up there.
で初の拡張であるヘブンズワード、2015年の6月にリリースして、その後の8月に、全世界累計登録者数が500万人を突破したと。
And then next, we were able to launch our first ever expansion pack, Heaven's Word, in 2015 June. And then soon after, we reached 5 million registered players.
でこのあたりはですね、我々開発チームもですね、高難易度って言われてよしやっちゃうぞって言ってもうキリッキリなのをやったらですね、いや難しすぎんだろってなってですね、我々もいろいろな失敗を繰り返してですね、今につながってる本当重要な時期だったと思います、ここは。
But this is around the time when people were starting to clamor for higher difficult content, and the dev team got so excited about, oh yeah, you want difficult? And so we gave you a really, really tough content, and people started complaining now about, oh no, this is too difficult, Yoshida, this is too difficult. And so we were trying to find that balance. It was trial and error trying to get to that nice balance. But I think it was really important that we're making that conversation.
あれでね、僕は人生の格言の一つをね学んだんですよ。プレイヤーの皆さんにはいやちょっと簡単だったなって言われるぐらいがちょうどいいんだなと。
And it was then that I learned this very valuable lesson, which is I think it's best to keep the difficulty where the players would walk out of it saying, that was pretty easy.
で、グレンのリベレーターを発売したのが2017年6月で、この辺りからようやくこうバトルコンテンツ以外の、そのもう14の世界に住むみたいなことをより具体化していけるようになったのがこのぐらいの時期で、まあそれがね、功を奏してですね、登録者数が、この時点で1000万人突破と。
And then, of course, Stormblood released in 2017 June, and we started looking at various other types of content aside from battle and combat, content that would involve
you either love Eureka or hate Eureka.
Final Fantasy XIV. And I think that really struck a chord with people. People were resonating with it, which thankfully got us to our registered player number up to 14 million players.
思い出されるグレンのリベレーター初日のね、ラウバーン透滅戦。
すごかったですね。
And I still remember when Stormblood first launched, Rauban Extreme in the Niners.
ありましたね。
I think we all remember that.
Yeah, we all do.
まあ、あの失敗があってね、今の安定したキューイングシステムがあったりするからね。
About extreme.
But I mean, even with that failure, we learned from it and we were able to build a much better queuing system.
そしてですね、2018年になると、全世界登録者数が1400万人を突破して、2019年には、1600万人を突破と。ありがとうございます。
So I'm sorry, this is where we hit 14 million is 2018 August. And then moving on, we reached 16 million players by 2019 May. So thank you so much for all the players that are staying with us.
そして続けてですね、2019年に、漆黒のヴィランズを発売し、その年末にはですね、全世界累計登録者数が1800万人を、突破となりました。
And moving on, we released Shadowbringers in 2019, and soon after, we surpassed 18 million registered players.
数字に関して言うと、単純に数字だけをこう見ていくと、
My God,
その
chat's going crazy about
なん
Dark
ていう
Knights.
の、
It really is so
ペース
bad.
っていうのが
I know I
ばらつい
haven't
てるよう
played
な
it,
見える
but
の
come
か
on.
もしれないんですけ
Can't be that
ど
bad.
実は体験したことのある人が増えれば増え
But yeah,
る
but
ほ
developer,
ど
it's no, it's not gonna
新
happen.
規が
Now.
当然減るんですよね。
はい。
パイが決まってるところから新しい人を呼ばなきゃいけないので、だからここまでの数字になってるのにさらに数百万増やしていくっていうこと自体は
ね
とてもすごいことで、これは本当ね、まあ、開発運営チームの努力もそうなんですけど、マーケティング PR チームが、
はい。
コミュニティの皆さんと一緒になって達成してきてる数字なので、本当にこれはね誇らしい数字だと思ってます。
And looking at the numbers, it might seem like there's no real, like nothing of note. Oh yeah, the numbers are just increasing. But if you consider this, if we have a certain number of people already playing the game, and if we have a single pie that we're taking numbers out of, like you would expect the numbers to start going down, but it's interesting that we see more and more players join us even after all these years. We are seeing millions signing up. So, of course, I really want to acknowledge the development team, operations team, but also the marketing and PR teams working with the community to kind of promote the title and get the word out. So
This one is
I'm very
personal,
proud
guys.
of their achievements.
そして2021年、去年ですね、12月2日にはですね、全世界累計登録者数が2500万人を突破し、ちょっと昨日の数字とかは見てないですけど、まだ全然まだ上がってってると思うので、で12月7日ですね、すいません、2週間ほどちょっと遅延をさせていただくことにはなってしまいましたが、行月のフィナーレを発売して、ハイデリンゾディアーク編完結というところまでこぎつけてこられたなと。
And of course, 2021, which is last year, we surpassed 25 million registered players. I did not see yesterday's numbers or like as of yesterday's numbers, but I do understand that our numbers are still increasing. And then afterwards, I know we had to delay the release by about 2 weeks. Again, apologies for the delay, but we were able to release Endwalker, and finally we were able to conclude the overarching story of Heidelin and Zodiark.
まあ長かったようで、僕は結構あっという間の11年でした。でも本当にね、世界中のプレイヤーの皆さん、光の選手の皆さん、メディアの皆さんもね、関係各社の皆さんにも本当にものすごくこんなに支えてもらうタイトルは他にないだろうと思うぐらい支えていただいてここまで来れたので、改めて本当に感謝をお伝えしたいと思います。ありがとうございます。
I
And
got
it feels
a
like a long
highlight, guys.
time, but man, these 11 years went by very quickly for me. And all of our warriors of light, our players, members of the media, all of our supporting partner companies as well. There were just so many people that supported us throughout this all. So I do want to take this opportunity to convey my gratitude from the bottom of my heart. So I sincerely thank everybody.
はい。まあ、あとは本当ね、開発チームにも、本当に厳しいスケジュールでやってきてて、まあ、実は拡張パッケージそのものの開発期間って1年とか、下手すると、1年切ってたりするんで、
They're saying crossover with Final Fantasy VII. It was the seventh
And I
time.
also want to acknowledge the development team as well. They were always working against a very harsh schedule, and even developing some of our expansion packs. Sometimes we have only about a year or even less than a year to get through all of the tasks that needed to get done. So I really want to show my appreciation to them as well.
さて、
お疲れ様です。
ではこれを踏まえてですね、ここまで歩んできたその11年、9番の状態を考えれば、これ以上ないぐらいの成功をさせていただいたと思ってます。ここはあんまり言葉を隠さずに成功できてると思ってるので、それでいいと思ってるんですけど、まあここまではある意味もう過去になったので、ここからさらに次の10年また挑戦を続けていきたいと思います。
And looking at the trajectory here and the path we've walked down, I think I want to consider this a success from what we had taken and what state it was in when we had first taken on the project, and to bring it to where it is now. I'm not ashamed to declare it. It might be a little awkward in the Japanese, but I believe it is a success, and I think it's a good thing that we've gotten here. But now that we have gotten this far, all of this is now in the past, and so we want to look to the future. We want to see what kind of challenges we can take on.
というわけで2つ目のセクションである14の新しい挑戦と題してですね、まあ今後どういうことをやっていくのかというのをお伝えしていきたいと思います。
What's the
So
plan?
for the second part of this presentation, as you see, it is entitled Newfound Futures. So I would like to discuss what we are intending to do.
まずですね、僕としてはですね、社長からやめろって言われるか、まあ、やめろって言われても抵抗するとは思うんですけど、開発チームの上チームからやめろって言われるか、死ぬかぐらいの以外では、14をやめる気がなく続けていきますんで、この先もぜひ皆さんよろしくお願いします。
And me personally, as Yoshida, unless the CEO says, Yoshida, you need to leave, and even then, I think I'm going to fight him. Or if like the development team, the operations team want to kick me out, or if I, God forbid, die, those are the only extreme cases I would even consider leaving the 14 project. I want to continue working on Final Fantasy 14, so your continued support will definitely be appreciated.
というわけでですね、まず今回その10年さらにこう14をせっかくねここまで日本初のそのサービスでこの規模まで来れるってなかなかあることじゃないので、この先の10年に向けてまずは 7.0 をめがけて、新しいことに挑戦していこうと思ってます。
So of course, with this title, and considering that this game was launched from a Japanese development studio, and being able to expand to this global scope, it's a rarity, I think. And so my next goal, my future goal, is now looking at 7.0 and leading up to that, what can we do?
コメントが 7.0 って言ったかで
大丈夫大丈夫、もうシナリオ会議の1回目やったから、合宿やったから、7.0 はやるよ。
People are already speculating about, oh no, 7.0 confirmed? Well, I mean, we are already talking about scenario for 7.0. I'm not afraid to say that we do intend on doing a 7.0.
まずここに向けてちょっとコンセプトを話をさせてもらいます。まずその一つ目がこちらになります。
Now, that being said, I do want to establish what my thinking is and the concept behind what we're trying to do leading up to 7.0. And this is the first point.
まあこれ具体的にどういうことっていうのはこの後ちゃんと、お話ししようと思います。
And of course, I will go into detail as to what this exactly means.
そしてですね、7.0 に向けて、チャレンジとしてですね、こちら、第1次グラフィックスのアップデートの準備開発っていうのをやっていきます。
And then next, again, leading up to 7.0, and one of the challenges that we want to take on is our first graphical update, at least the preparation and the development for it.
まあ、なんで第一次ってついてるかっていうのも
We're getting some graphics update, guys. Really?
ちょっとお話しようと思い
For
ま
an
す。
expansion?
And of course, when we dive into each of these different points, I will touch upon why we are calling this the first graphical update.
まあ一応先に言っとくコメントが結構多いんで
Are we getting heroic dungeons?
PS4 が遊べなくなるってことはないです。それはないのでお約束し
That
て
would be exciting for sure.
I do want to clarify
Heroic
though,
and
because I am
mythic
seeing a lot
dungeons,
of
but in Final
comments wondering
Fantasy.
about this. This does not necessarily mean that we are ceasing the support for PS4 as of 7.0. So I do want to clear that.
I don't care about
clear
that. I
that
play
out
on
first.
PC. The true master race.
そしてですね、今日3つ目、せっかくなのでパッチ 6.X シリーズでどんなことをやっていくかというのもお知らせします。
And then the third point, I mean, since we are here, I would like to take the opportunity to cover what we are planning to do throughout the 6.x series as a sort of roadmap.
はい、では各項目、詳しくよりお伝えしていこうと思います。
Okay, diving into the details.
まずコンセプトの一つ目ですね。一人でもみんなでも遊べる RPG へ、さらなる進化をしていきますと。
I like that idea.
So
They're
our
not
first
dropping
concept, an
either
even better
solo play
RPG,
or
alone
group
or with
content.
friends.
これ何かというとですね、読んで字のごとくなんですけど、そのファイナルファンタジー14一応ジャンルとしては MMORPG って呼ばれてます。
So, I mean, it is what it says, of course, but yes, I understand that Final Fantasy XIV as a game genre would be categorized as an MMORPG.
そこでですね、僕この11年ファイナルファンタジー14をやってきて、世界中のプレイヤーの皆さんとイベントだったりファンフェスも含めてですけど、本当たくさんのゲーマーの人たちと話をしてきました。
And of course, throughout the 11 years of doing Final Fantasy XIV, we did various events, gaming events, including Fan Festival, and I had the opportunity to speak with the different gamers.
そこでですね、あとそのマーケティングチームに市場調査とかをしてもらって、これね定期的に拡張のたびにやってるんですけど、やっぱりそこで出てくる答えっていうのが、なかなかブレイクスルーできないなっていうのがあったりします。
And of course, I would have my marketing teams perform market research as well. And this is something we regularly do when we start to plan for upcoming expansion packs. And with the information that we receive, and there's always like a question that we never seem to find a way to break through.
2つあって、1つはファイナルファンタジーシリーズ大好きなんだよ、すごいファンなんだ、全部やってるよ、ただし11と14以外ねっていうのがめちゃくちゃ悔しい。
So there's actually two, and one of them is we see there's a lot of players that love Final Fantasy and many that claim they've played all of the Final Fantasies except for 11 and 14, which is very frustrating.
11もね今かなりアップデートをかけてかなり
Is some sort of solo content coming?
快適にしてますが、14はさらにその先へ行きたい
It
と思
could
って
be
ます。
huge.
And of course, we are paying attention to Final Fantasy XI players as well, and we've made various updates. I think it has become very solo friendly recently, but with Final Fantasy XIV, we want to go beyond that.
あとはもう一つはですね、オンライン
What is it?
なんだよね。
What is it? Tell
めんどく
us!
さい、人と遊ぶの嫌、なんか人間関係作るの嫌っていうのがですね、やっぱりナンバーワンなんですよね、そのプレイをしない理由っていうところで。
The second point we are trying to reach a breakthrough is people who comment about, oh, online play, I don't want to deal with having to play with other people. I don't want to develop relationships online. And that's actually a very large reason, if not the number one reason, many players kind of hesitate playing 14.
だから10年かけて MMORPG っていうジャンルじゃなくて一人でもみんなでも遊べる RPG っていうジャンルにしたいと14を
So what I want to do here is spend the next 10 years and break out of that MMORPG category. I want this to be an RPG that can be enjoyed alone or with friends.
I'll play everything. I'll play solo content, group content, competitive rank,
までの
everything.
間
Just bring it
フ
to
ェイ
me.
スシステムの大規模アップデートっていうのをやっていきます、
So, as a lead up to 7.0 or until that time, we will continue to make updates to the trust system.
パッチ 6.1 から 6.5 までの5つのメジャーパッチで全メインクエストの必須 ID と4人用の透滅戦を全てフェイス対応します。
So as it says here, trust compatibility for all main scenario dungeons and 4-player trials to be added in patch 6.1 through 6.5.
4-player
まあ
trials.
順次なのでね、パッチ例えば
That's interesting.
6.2 とかを見ると中途半端なところまでしか対応されてないとかいうことがある可能性は高いんですけど、それにね怯えているといつまで経ってもできないので全部一気には不可能なので、もうなのでこの 6.1 から 6.5 つまり 7.0 までの間を次に飛び上がるためにもうどんどん順次やっていくという期間に当てさせてください。
And so, of course, these are going to be incremental implementation. And so you might look at, say, patch 2 point something and 6.2, and you might notice that maybe not all of the dungeons have been supported with a trust system compatibility. But if we are afraid to make progress and be just in the middle of work in a certain major patch update, we won't be able to make progress. I think it's impossible to do everything at once. So we are trying to address this as we can, and we're looking at this as a preparation for 7.0. And so we would like to ask for your understanding as we lay these foundations.
その第1弾となるパッチ 6.1 では新生オールゼア編のうち、2.0 範囲をすべて対応します。
So the first implementation, patch 6.1, will make a Realm Reborn, and this is just patch 2.0 range, and the scenarios duty become trust compatible.
そしてですね、それに伴って一部初期のですねメインクエスト ID とか、透滅戦もリニューアルします。
Please delete Criterion.
And then further improvements will be made to some low-level main scenario dungeons and trials.
でちょっと注意なんですけど、蒼天のイシュガルドに入ってからの8人透滅戦ストーリー上に出てくるあれらはちょっとやっぱりコストを全見積もりしたんですけど、どうしてもこう 6.1 から 6.5 までの期間では対応しきれないので、8人の透滅戦に関しては 7.0 以降順次対応していくつもりです。
You may see the disclaimers on the bottom, but for the 8-player trials, especially those with the Heaven's Word expansion, I'm afraid we are unable to update it at this time. We tried to calculate all the cost and the resources that it would take for us to address all of this within that sort of 6.1 through 6.5 timing, but I'm afraid we would be unable to allocate the resources for it. So we will get to it after 7.0. Yeah, these updates will be considered for 7.0 or later.
まあもちろん皆さんご存知の通り、その通常のねマッチングがなくなるわけじゃないので、あくまでストーリーを一人で進めていきたいっていう人のための機能なので、レベリングルーレットだったりねマッチングっていうところはそのまま継続していくので、そこはご承知おきください。
And of course, we don't intend to do away with the regular matching systems. Your leveling dungeons and queue matching in duty finders will still be active and available. These trust compatibility is primarily for those who have a strong desire to play through these story dungeons on their own.
で、ですね、8人透滅戦は今回行月のフィナーレでハイデリン透滅戦でテストケースとしても含めてやったんですけど、やれることはなんだろう、確証を得られたんですけど、まあ、相当やっぱりコストがかかるっていうのと、ギミックから調整していかないといけないっていうこともあって、まずは数の多い ID から優先させていただいてます。あとはね、8人なんで責任半のかかり方がちょっと減るんで、やっぱり、まあここは逆にマッチングの面白さ
I
みた
wonder
い
if
な
they're
ところを
going
味
to
わってもらいたいので、
re-implement the
一旦
squadron
ゼ
system
ロ移行
into
にさせて
the
ください。
trust system, or like somehow
Of course,
converge
with
them
these
or
eight
fuse them,
people
because right now it
trials or
feels like a little bit
eight-person
outdated,
battles,
both systems.
we did try it out with the Mother Crystal trial, and we were able to see success as like a test case, but it did require a lot of resources for us to build it. And then if we were to start applying that system to existing dungeons, we'd have to adjust the mechanics so that it would accommodate for the trust system. So at this time, we made the decision to move forward with just the instanced dungeons. And with an 8-person trial, I think that sort of reduces the responsibility per person going into the match, hopefully. So we're hoping that players would still jump into like a duty finder and hopefully get the enjoyment out of matching up with random people. So at this time, we are unable to address it within the 6.1 through 6.5 period, but we are looking to it for 7.0 or later.
でちょっと注意なんですけど、
はい、
まあどうしてもフェイスっていう呼び方をすると、
うん、
暁といけんのかなとか名のある NPC といけんのかなってイメージがちょっと強いと思うんですけど、ストーリー上こうそのマッチングでしかいけないからこそ、じゃあ俺は他のことをやってくるみたいなのでこうみんなちょっといなくなったりとかしてたと思うんですよ。あれまで全部変えるはさすがに無理なので特に序盤とかは冒険者ギルドのメンバーだったりとか、暁の光のなんだろう、こう光の加護を持っているであろう他のメンバーみたいなイメージで組むケースが多いです。
And I want to make another point of caution here. Whenever we say trust compatibility, I think the thought that, oh, can we go into this dungeon with members of the Scions or any sort of named NPCs? And some of these story dungeons have key players kind of leaving the scene, like where the Warrior of Light goes into a dungeon and say somebody goes over and say, oh, I'm going to take care of matters over there. We can't have them come back just to join you in the dungeon. So in those cases, especially the earlier dungeons, you will see your trust members as like members from the Adventurers Guild or maybe other people who have the Echo accompany you in these dungeons.
ただ、まあキーになるストーリー上のキーになるポイントで、まあこいつはやっぱり本当はダンジョン一緒に行ってほしかったなってプレイヤーの皆さんが思ってるようなポイントは、シナリオ一部カットシーンも含めてちょっと変更してでもできるだけそれにまあ添えるように、やっぱりニーズヘックと対峙するときはエスニアンも行ってほしかったなみたいなやつはできる限りそういうシチュエーションはなんとか対応していこうと思ってるので、一部ねそれもちょっと変更する部分があるかなとは思います。全部は無理なんで、
Not a fan,
そこ
but
はご
I
了承くだ
guess
さ
we
い。
need to.
But that being said, there are certain key points in the story where we do understand players might have a very strong desire to have particular NPCs accompany you in a dungeon. So in some extreme cases, and not extreme cases, but like some key points, the team will make some adjustments. We may have to change a part of the script so that it'll make sense for the character to join you. An example I can come up with off the top of my head is probably the Nidhogg battle. I'm sure a lot of people would have thought like, oh, it would have been nice to have Estinian join as part of the Trust NPC. So we're considering having that available. So there may be some content that accommodates for certain NPCs to join you. I'm afraid we can't address all of them. We can't make it happen with all of the dungeons. So your understanding on that would be appreciated.
そしてですね、ごめんねちょっと長くて、6.1 特集パート1の時にまた詳しくお話ししようと思いますが、新生オルゼアの後半って結構今のレギュレーションと違ってしまってるこうダンジョンとかが多いので、かなり手が入ってます、いろいろ。
And of course, with the details of 6.1, we will have a dedicated live letter for that, and I will delve into details at that time. But I do want to mention that much of the content, especially in the later half of ARR, differ in how the regulation is set up. So there are changes that have been made.
まあ例えばトトラクとかの、ドゥーンってなってヘビースローがかかるヘビーがかかる床とかなくなってます。
For example, like when you go into the 1,000 Miles of Totorak, and you step on those like poison floors, and all of a sudden you are hit with heavy or slow, we're actually getting rid of that.
まあ、あとは、
thanks God.
ちょっと Q14 から申請するのに急いで作ってちょっとライティング良くないなとかいうところのダンジョンもちょっと絵的な調整もそれなりにやってます。
And there are also some aesthetical changes that we wanted to make. There were certain areas of the earlier part of FF14 when we were trying to quickly just relaunch as a Realm Reborn. So there were areas where lighting may not have been 100% to what we would have been satisfied with. So we went back in and adjusted those as well.
そしてですね、まあ他にもですね、8人パーティーバトルの一番最初であるビットアッティン教習戦なんですけど、なくなります。
And then one of the first 8-person party battles that you encounter, I believe, is Camp Westwind. And I want to mention that we are doing away with that.
皆さん大ショックを受けておられます。People are getting shocked.
帝国の盾としてね、武人として身を挺してやってきた、
It's the hardest one to why?
まあ将軍ではないけど正しくは8人でフルボッコはいかがなものかということでですね、はい、ちゃんとコストをかけてですね、クエストインスタンスバトルとして、生まれ変わりますので。
Considering Litatine is like the shield of the Garlean Empire. I mean, he's technically not a captain, but like, I mean, he's like a very prominent figure. I think it would be very humiliating for 8 people to come in and just beat him up. So we actually allocated the resources to rebuild that battle so that it's going to be a quest instanced battle that you go in.
That makes more sense.
まあ他にも内閣外閣と呼ばれている8人ダンジョン、あれらもですね、今回すべて4人用 ID に作り直してあります。
And then of course, the Praetorium and the Castrum Sorry, I can't pronounce it. Meridianum. Those very long Guardian bases that you need to go. They were originally 8-person content, but we are going to be changing it so that these are 4-person instanced dungeons.
なのでアルテマウェポン戦も切り出して、4人用としてシナリオモードを作って、であとラハブレアが憑依したサンクレットさんを8人でただひたすら無言で殴るっていうのも、ストーリー用のクエストインスタンスバトルとして作り直しているので
大好事です。
はい。
And so your battle with Ultima, or the Ultima weapon, will be changed to a 4-person battle. We are adjusting the scenario mode for that. And then where you go in and silently beat up La Habrea, aka Thancred being possessed by La Habrea, is also going to be adjusted so that it's like an instance during a story quest.
というわけで、まあそんな風にコストもですね、レギュレーション、今のプレイフィールにできるだけ近づけられるように、いろんな改修をしつつですね、パッチ 6.1 から 6.5 にかけて、
That's a lot of changes in terms of how the new dungeons are going to be working, but I don't think they're giving us much in terms of everything else, right?
So, yeah, in a nutshell, we are going in and making many adjustments so that it fits with kind of follows suit better with how the game feels at this time. So throughout patch 6.1 through 6.5, we will be looking at the various content up to the 4.x series, the different instance dungeon to make adjustments.
Such
さあ、では
devastation.
このセクション以上で次へ行きたいと思います。
Okay, so moving on to the next section.
2つ目の新しい挑戦ですね。この、6.1 から6.5 までの期間、まあ、7.0 リリースまでの期間を使ってですね、まず、まあ、長期運営やっていく上で、第一次のグラフィックスアップデートを、裏でね、作業させていただきます。
So our second concept, and again, this is going to be the preparation that we will be doing throughout patch 6.1 through 6.5, leading up to the launch of 7.0. It is a long-term, or like preparations for long-term operation of the game, and we want to be doing this in the background, but we'll be preparing for our first graphics update.
ただ、まあ、なぜ第一次グラフィックスアップデートと言ってるかっていうと、まあ2時も3時もあるんだろう、もしかしたらってことなんですけど、なぜかというと、もうここまで11年運営してきてると、もう尋常じゃないリソース、グラフィックスアセットが存在してます。はい。
So the reason why we named this the first graphical update, and that's of course to imply that there will probably a second and or third after this, but our game has been in operation for about 11 years, and considering all the graphical assets we have produced, it's an insane amount.
Yep.
やっぱり一気に極限まで上げようとすると、絶対コンバートミスがあったりとか、そもそもコンバートの物理時間が足りなくて、もうデザインチームが無理です、絶対できませんっていう答えになってしまうので、まあやれることを一回やって引き上げたら、またその状態で安定が見えたら次のをやってっていう形で、まあその第1回目が来るんだというふうに思ってください。
And so if we attempted to update every single piece of graphical asset or resource that we've put into the game all at the same time, we might run into issues of conversion errors, or it's just physically takes a lot of time to convert everything. And consulting with the graphics team, they already know that we can't address everything all at the same time. And so what we're trying to do is address these in phases so that we can test out certain elements, see how they work, and if it seems to be stable, we move into the next phase. And so I think with our first graphical update, this will be like the first time we start testing some of these elements.
4K グレープスでめっちゃ吹いたんだけど。
Grapes.
I saw a comment that says 4K grapes. Thank you so much for that. That was hilarious.
あそこに 4K とかね、なんか40万ポリゴンとかかけてると、それこそ940みたいにキャラクター全然表示できねえぞってことになっちゃうので、まあちょっとこれから詳しく説明はします。
I can copy that.
That's hilarious, but like imagine spending so much resources just to get the grapes to be 4K resolution, and imagine spending 400,000 polygons just to depict a piece of fruit. We won't have enough resources to render our characters on screen. But let me go into the details.
そのグラフィックスアップデートは一気に、7.0 での投入を予定してます。
So again, these graphical updates are intended to be implemented in 7.0.
まあその次期拡張パッケージまでの間っていうのを、まあ、僕らのそのグラフィックスのアップデートのシェーダー追加したりとか、いろんなものを追加していくテスト期間だったりプログラム期間だったり、それに合わせたグラフィックスアセットのコンバート期間というふうにさせてください。
So until 7.0, this will be, again, our preparation period. So this is where our team will be testing out various additions to the graphical elements.
Do they expect to have a
including,
2-year
different
preparation period?
shaders. We'll probably need to write more programs. This is where when we're going to be doing our asset conversions, etc.
でここが重要なんですけど、あくまでやっぱりマルチプレイのゲームであるっていうのをぜひ覚えておいてほしくて、やっぱり画面全体の美しさ、9番から申請した時に感じていただいたように、やっぱり総合的な美しさ、世界の美しさっていうのを追求していきますよと、コンセプトとしてはね。
And of course, one key point that we want players to understand is that this is still a multiplayer game, and so we want to strive for the aesthetic quality of the overall picture and looking at the sort of beauty or the element, aesthetically pleasing sort of overall picture.
だってこうまさにね、発売されたホライゾンのさクオリティでさ動くと思われたら困るわけだよ。あれで俺たち300人とか描画しなきゃいけないんで、いやできはするんだけど、みんなの PC 動かないよ。
確かに。
And I see games like Horizon Forbidden West, and I don't want to get people to think that we'll raise our graphic quality to that. It's amazing, yes, but imagine having to have to render 300 different characters on screen at the same time at that quality. And it's not physically impossible, but then I don't think it's going to run on anybody's PC.
そこは覚えといてね、みんなね。
So please keep that in mind.
ここをね、なんか勘違いされるのが一番怖い。
That's the scariest thing for people to kind of misconstrue.
で、当然なんですけど、アニメーションとか、まあその世界全体、画面全体の美しさっていうところにやっぱりアニメーションとかライティングシステムっていうのも大きく寄与していると思うので、このあたりもアップデートしていきます。
And of course, considering the sort of overall
So a full
aesthetic,
graphical revamp for
animation is going to
7.0.
be a key element we're looking at. Lighting is another element that we want to adjust as well.
まあ例えばアニメーションに使っている、よくねメモリがって言われますけど、メモリの割り当てをちょっと増やすことによって今までより長尺のこうエモートモーションが作れるとか、あとまあそのライティングがライトの数が増えることで実は潰れていたバックグラウンドのディティールがより見えてきて、リソースに手を加えなくても綺麗に見えるみたいなところもあるんで。
Right.
So what we mean by different updates to animation and lighting systems is, for example, I know people would automatically start talking about, oh yeah, memory issues with animation. So if we revisit some of the allocation of the memory for animation, it might allow us to create emotes with a longer animation loop, or with lighting, they're just having more lights than we had originally set up would allow for details that would have been sort of washed out or like not visible because of insufficient lighting to kind of show up. And so that will allow for an improvement in the graphical quality without us even having to adjust the elements that are already in the game.
まあ重要なところです。
はい。
スタンドアローンのゲームクオリティにはなりません、これをですね皆さん頭にすり込むためにもですね寝る前に必ず一度復唱していただきたいぐらい
And again, very important point. I want to stress again, the new graphics will not be comparable to those of standalone titles. This is again very important. I want you to remember it. I want you to repeat it before you go to bed. That's how much I want people to remember.
まあとはいえやっぱりグラフィックスいろいろ手を入れてパフォーマンスというかね処理はより動作が重くなりはするので 7.0 では最低動作保証スペックの条件が、変わるのは確定です、ただできるだけ多くのスペックにね対応できるっていうところはこれまでのポリシーでもあるので、捨てずにやっていきたいと思ってます、
So that being said, we do want to update the graphics for sure, and so that means your processor might require more power in order to render these graphics properly or like efficiently. So we will probably have to update the system requirements for your machines and your PCs. We will try our best to accommodate for as many models of machines to accommodate with the changes, but we do want
test of your
to
resources.
make you aware that it is pretty much guaranteed that we will have to update the system requirements.
でやっぱり気になるプレイステーション4なんですけど、この 6.x 期間中に、先行投入すると思いますけど PS4 版の最適化をやっていきます。
And I know people are wondering about PlayStation 4 support as of 7.0. I think what's going to happen, and this will probably be done prior to the launch of 7.0, so sometime within the 6.x series, we do want to optimize the PS4 version for sure.
で、さらにですね、PC 版にあるようにグラフィックスオプションのカスタムっていうの PS4 版少ないんですけど、あれを増やしてですね新しいその描画とか入れるとやっぱ重くなる部分があるので重くても綺麗でいいやっていう人はオンにしてもらえばいいんだけど、オフにしてそのフレームレートを優先するみたいなことができるようにしていくので PS4 のサポートっていうのも少なくとも 7.0 のタイミングではしっかりやりますので。
So, and on top of that, there are various graphical configurations that you can set up on the PC version. Like you can customize some of the like display options, and we understand that it's a bit lacking in the PS4 version. So we do want to implement options in the configuration so that you can select like prioritize frame rate, or if you want to, if you're okay with performance kind of dropping slightly, but still have the graphics performance, then you can select that option, whatnot. So I do want to assure you that we will continue supporting for PS4 at least until 7.0.
Whoa.
みんなどう思うんだろうこれ。
What people's reactions are.
That seems a little bit on the uncanny valley.
Some people think, oh, is that me?
そうそうそう。なんかさ、多分ね、こ
I
れ
don't
じゃ
know,
ない
bro.
よね、多分みんな求めてるの。
I don't think this is what we are looking for. This is not what we would desire.
なんか疲れた吉田って書かれてる。
Some people are saying this looks like a very tired Yoshida.
そう、なんか違うでしょ。
Yeah, but it kind of does feel awkward.
ここまでリアルにはならんす。
So we aren't going to be working
Yeah,
to
it's
make it look
pretty
this real.
deep into the uncanny valley, I think. I don't think it's
い
what
わ
I
ゆる
want
フォトリアルを追求していくとグラフィックスアップデートってこっちに行きがちなんですけど、おそらくファイナルファンタジー14の世界やキャラクターが気に入ってくださってる方多分こっちを求めてはいないと思ってます。
And some games, of course, their intent is to lean towards that photorealistic depiction, and people tend to lean in this direction. But I think for those who enjoy the aesthetic of Final Fantasy XIV, this is not necessarily what we want to begin with.
Yeah, it's
で
really
は
weird, right?
今そのグラフィックスアップデートって実はテス
disturbing about it.
ト開発もスタートさせてるんですけど、テストスタートしてからまだ1ヶ月と1週間ぐらいなんですね。
So with these graphical updates, we are already starting testing actually, and it's been about a month and a week.
なのでその1ヶ月と1週間ぐらいテストをして、まあこれだったらもう今出してもまあいけるだろうここまではと。まあこれ以上を目指すんだけど、まあ少なくとも一旦お見せしてもここまでは間違いなく大丈夫だよあると 7.0 でっていうのを用意してきたんでちょっと見ていきましょうか。
And so we are still very early in our testing stages, again, about a month or so testing, but we do have results that we're seeing that is, of course, we're going to aim higher than what we're going to be showing you, but I think it's coming out pretty nicely and we are relatively confident. So let us show you some of these images.
Yeah. After that.
こちらがですね、テスト期間1ヶ月目のサンプルです。キャラクターですね、まず。
So from first month of testing, so this is one of the samples.
これ左が今で、右がテクスチャーをハイレゾリューション化してます。髪の毛も含めて。で、あとシェーダーを、1枚入れてます。
And so what you're seeing is the current image on the left, and then on the right, we've made the textures high resolution, and we've added a layer of shaders.
あと、セルフシャドウって言って自分の髪の毛の影が顔に落ちた時、まあその自分のオブジェクトが自分に影を落とすのをセルフシャドウって言うんですけど、そこも調整してるので、結構ね、セルフシャドウ実はすごい気になってて、カットシーンとかでも。
And one thing that we did pay attention to was the self shadow, or whenever there's like an object that drops a shadow on yourself, especially if you look at the bangs and the shadow it casts underneath it. That was something that I was
Can you imagine hyper-realistic Final Fantasy 14
looking
would
at
be very disturbing with all the cat girls and
in the past.
Lalafell
で
especially.
まあこれ1ヶ月目のサンプル
Like
なの
realistic
で、
Lalafels.
もっと上
Holy
目指せ
crap.
るとは思ってるんですけど、動作保証あまりにも重くならないっていう意味では、今一旦お見せできるのはここまで、まあ、この上さらにいろんなことをやった上で最適化していって、まあ、やれるより高いところは目指していこうかなと思ってます。
So of course we do want to strive for even better, but at this time I think from 1 month of testing and making sure that the game itself runs properly, I think this is what we can show at this time, and then we'll continue to test and we'll continue to sort of improve and then apply optimization.
まあいわゆるヒロシと呼ばれてる彼でやるとこんな感じです。
Of course, our Derplander.
Lalafell.
でちょっとミコッテのサンプルです。
There you go.
Here's a sample of the Mikote.
まあ戦月賞のボケ具合が、まあなくなったりですね、髪の毛の柔らかいそのカールの印象とかってちゃんと出てるのと、まあセルフシャドウがボケてないんでね、綺麗にかかるようになります。
It's more than detail.
Of course, you
They're
may
adding
notice the face
lightning
paint, the war
and
paint
shading
is a
effects
lot
in these
crisper
pictures.
now. And then, as mentioned earlier, self shadow is nicer. I think it's brings out the softness of her face.
It's not that they're using more polygons, it's just that they're
まあ
smoothing
これがだい
more.
たい1ヶ月
And using
目
better
だっていう
lighting.
のをぜひ認識しておいてください。
Again, just to remind you, this is after testing for about a month.
Please show the Lalafell, dude. Please, I beg of you. It's gonna be awesome.
まあこの方向性で良さそうよね、やっぱりね、みんなのコメント見ていると。
Looking at everybody's comments, it seems like we are on the right track in terms of like the direction we want to take it to.
そうですね。Yeah, it looked like
でララフェルがね、一番難しいんですよ。
Yeah.
And the Lalafell was actually quite challenging.
なんかリアルにするところがなくて。
There are no areas really to make it quote unquote realistic, you know.
Yeah, if they go for hyper realistic, what would you would
まあでも
you would
髪の
love
毛
from
綺麗になっ
Frothgar?
て、目の周りはものすごく鮮明になって、まあキャラメイクしていけばね、もちろんいろんなパターン作れるとは思うんですけど。
But I think the hair has definitely gotten more defined, and then the eyes has become very crisp, and it looks a lot more alive, so to speak. And with being able to character create, I think it'll allow for players for a broad range.
そうね、肌の感じをどこまでなんだろう、本当にツルツルにするのかララフェルは、こう少しそうは言ってもちゃんと肌っていう感じを出すのかは、結構ね調整が難しいところだとは思ってるので、ただ皆さんが求めてるであろう方向性は理解してるつもりなので、しっかり種族ごとにですね調整しながらいきたいなと思ってます。
And it's still a challenge to figure out how do we depict the surface of their skin. Like, do we make it completely like flawless, spotless, or do we actually give it some texture to make it look like skin? We want to believe that we understand what the players are looking for, but it is something that we still need to kind of explore.
まあ、なんて言ったってね、11年も皆さんと一緒にこのゲーム作ってきてるんで、
そうですね。
皆さんが求める方向は理解してるつもりではあります。はい。
It's a
Again,
difficult
we've
questions,
been
right? Because
with you guys for
we
about
want to have
11
more
years at this time,
details and
so
more texture
we
to the
want to believe
skin,
that we
but how much does
understand what the
that
players are
decrease the
looking for.
amount of cuteness
すい
in
ません、ちょっと
itself?
テスト
Right?
1ヶ
That's the
月目と
question.
いうことでですね、キャラクターサンプルとしては以上になります。またなんだろう、途中でね、ファンフェスのタイミングとかあればまた途中経過とかね、お知らせしていけたらなと思ってます。
So yeah, because we are still in the early stages of testing, as for character samples, that is all that we have at this time. We're hoping that we can continue to update everybody on the status. Perhaps maybe next time we can do it at like a fan festival or something like that.
じゃあ改めてですね、そのキャラクター、まずそのグラフィックス第一次グラフィックスアップデートでキャラクターに関する表現のアップデート項目をお知らせしておきます。
Okay, so just wanted to recap all of the different elements that we look to update for our first set of graphical updates in terms of characters.
まずですね、全体的にテクスチャーを高解像度にしていきます。髪とか肌とか、それから今日ちょっとねご紹介できてないですけど、装備品のテクスチャーの解像度も上げていきます。
So first one would be higher resolution textures, which includes hair, skin, and we weren't able to show any examples today, but we do want to improve the textures of the gear as well.
でさらにですね、これはシェーダーと呼ばれる、処理になってくるんですけど、質感の表現というのを向上させていきます。例えば肌、それから装備品の金属部分、あと布って、布用のシェーダーっていうのが実はあって、Q14 では入れてたんですけど、重すぎて外してるんですね。そろそろいけるだろうということで、布がもう少し滑らかに布っぽく見えるっていうシェーダーなどを今、研究トライしているところです。
And then the next item, and this is relating to various shader processing, which is improved material qualities, of course, skin, metal, and fabric. It's interesting because in the 1.0 or like the old version of Final Fantasy XIV, there was a shader or like a process that was just applied to fabric so that it would look the texture quality would look like fabric, but it was too heavy of a load on processing, so we had to remove it in the relaunch. But we're testing various ways to see if we can apply something like that to make fabric a bit more, well, smoother and more fabric-like. And we're still kind of researching and trying out various methods.
そしてですね、キャラクターに対してのライティングとシャドウの強化というのもやっていきます。特にね、見栄えに直結しやすいこうセルフシャドウに関してはすごくずっと気になってたんで。
That's fine, honestly. All these changes
and
are
then
needed.
again, lighting
If
and
the game is to
shadow,
continue for more than
better
10
lighting
years.
and shadow effects, especially for the player's shadows.
まあさっきもお話しましたけど、できるだけプレイヤーの皆さんの今のキャラクターに持ってるイメージっていうのが変わらないように、綺麗になったな俺のキャラって思ってもらえるようにしていきたいと思ってます。
Of course, again, our goal is to make it so that the overall appearance of player characters will be altered as little as possible. We want you guys to see the graphical updates and think, oh wow, my character's become pretty.
で注意点が2つあって、
はい、
まず1つ装備品、信じられない数のアセットがあるのであれを 7.0 までに全部コンバートするのは不可能です。
So 2 points of caution. The gear, we mentioned about updating the material quality of gear, but you know, there's an incredible, unbelievable amount of gear available for all of our player characters. And considering we'd have to convert them all, we will not be able to get through converting all of the gear by the 7.0 timing.
なので 7.0 で新しく実装されている装備っていうのは全て今回のグラフィックスアップデートを経た内容で作っていきます。なのでクオリティがより高いもので全部用意するつもりです。
So any gear that is implemented from 7.0 will have gone through the process of the updated graphics. So of course those will be of the higher quality.
ただし、できる限りこうプレイヤーの皆さんがミラプリとかをしておしゃれによく使っているものに関してはちょっと優先的にできる限り対応をして、またパッチ 7.x シリーズで徐々にその古い装備っていうのも新しい仕様に少しずつこう対応していけるようにっていうふうに思ってますので、ちょっと数年がかりで全体が上がっていくことにはなるかと思いますが、よろしくお願いします。
But we understand that there are certain glamours that people use often. So we want to look at those and try to get those done with a higher priority in terms of like which to get to. And throughout the 7.x series is when we will address the rest of the previous equipment or gear. So I'm afraid it will take at least a few years to address all of the different textures.
あと NPC です。今回ね、プレイヤーのキャラクターみんなクオリティアップするじゃん、バーンって。NPC 全員も無理だと思っていて、7.0 までには。
The other thing are the NPCs. I know we talked about updating the player characters and the graphics on those, but I'm afraid we're not going to be able to address all of the NPCs by 7.0.
申し訳ないんだが、クオリティの高くなった NPC とまだなんと順番が回ってこない NPC っていうのが出てしまうと思うんですけど、ちょっとそれも許していただけると助かります。
So I'm terribly sorry to say this, but you may start seeing NPCs that have gone through the graphical updates and those that have not gone through the updates. But please, your understanding would be appreciated.
これをね全部やれって言うと、いやもうじゃあグラフィックスアップデートやめましょう、無理です無理ですってなっちゃうんで、ちょっとちぐはぐっていうのが出ちゃうタイミングがあるとは思うんですけど、それをやっぱり承認していかないといつまで経ってもできないと思ってるので、ちょっと許していただけると。なのでちょっとイルベルドはまだ後でいいかみたいな。
And if I were to tell my team that, okay, we need to do everything, then people are just going to throw in the towel and be like, no, this is impossible. So I'm afraid there will be times at which not all of the NPCs will have gone through their graphical updates, and it might look a little disoriented or disjointed. But if I don't allow for that to happen, we won't be able to get to it. So again, if you could forgive us for going through that, that would be appreciated. Like, your bird might not get his graphical update as quickly as maybe like the Sultana, but
テレジアデレジはっていうお声が結構あるんですよ。
Yeah, we need to let you know that
ただですね、残念ながらなんとテレジアデレジってプレイヤーのなんだろうキャラメイクで作られてるんで、僕らが手を下さずともあいつ勝手にクオリティ上がってしまう可能性が高い。
some people are asking, oh, but what about telegy, adelegy? And I realize his expression is part of the parts that you can select when you're creating your character. So because we're updating the player character facial parts, telegy, adelegy is going to have his graphical updates already. So he may be an exception to those NPCs.
Makes sense.
まあというわけでプレイヤーベースで組まれているものはね必然的
なるほどね
にそうなるんですけど、まあナナモさんとかはねやった方がいいかなとは思ってるんですけど、ちょっとまだ精査まではしきれてないのでちょっとそういう状態が出るとは思うんですけどよろしくお願いします。
So yeah, any characters that are built based on facial parts or body parts that are available for players to utilize will probably be updated simultaneously with like the player character graphics. But there are certain key NPCs that we're also looking at. Maybe the Sultana, but we have yet to sort of assess, and we will continue to sort of explore the options.
でまあちょっと今日お見せしたのは繰り返しになりますがテストをスタートしてまだ1ヶ月ちょっとのデータなので、さらなるですねクオリティの向上に向けて他の種族も含めてですねテスト続行していきます。いずれ装備とかもねこんな感じになるよというのもお見せできればと思ってます。
But yeah, again, what we showed you was only about a month or so of testing. So we're hoping to provide you with more updates as they come in. Perhaps the other races, perhaps we can provide you an update with gear, etc. in the not so far future.
でそうだなあとは結構コメントであったんですけど装備の干渉なんとかしてほしいってあれは正直どうにもならないです。物理エンジンを入れて、計算でかわすしかないんですけどそれをやるとやっぱ動かなくなっちゃうと思うので、あとやっぱり装備の干渉を許可してる僕が、もういいとこれは割り切ってくれって言ってるから今のペースでそのアセットギアが報酬が装備がリリースできてるっていうところもあるので努力はしますが根本的にオフラインのゲームのようにはならないので、はい、そこはすいませんご了承ください。
And I'm also seeing comments about can you do something about like gear or equipment or like player characters like body parts interfering with the graphics of gear, equipped gear. And I'm afraid that is something that we cannot address fully. We would have to put in a physics engine in there, and that would cause for some of the characters to kind of not move properly anymore. And plus, I, as the director, have allowed for those imperfections to my team. I'm afraid we're just moving on with it, or else we won't be able to keep the pace in releasing these different gear and the different designs that is available. So I'm afraid we are unable to address it fully to match something that of a like a standalone game. Sorry.
さあでは次はですねちょっと BG、マップに関わるところもテスト1ヶ月ちょっとのサンプル持ってきました。
Okay, we have more samples though. This time it's for various backgrounds and like map elements.
まずこれは単純に、テクスチャーとかに何も手を入れずに、配置できるライトの数を増やすっていうテストのサンプルです。
So this first image is a test of just simply the number of lights we can place in a certain scene without it touching any of the textures or surfaces.
配置ライト数をですね複数増やすとこんな感じになります。
So we just added a few more lights in a particular scene, and what you see is in the right side of the image.
ライトがですね遠くに左側ね1灯しか焚けないので、ちょっと見てほしいのは手前側にあるデスクに影がほぼ落ちてないのが、右側複数ライトによってちゃんと影が出るようになってるでしょ。
So if you look at the one on the left, we were only able to place one light source in the scene, but in the picture on the right, we were able to place multiple lights to give it a more realistic look. And as you can see, the desk is now casting a shadow.
まあ当然分かりやすく上の方にライトさらに1灯追加されてるので、まああそこまで作り込んでたのにライトが当たらないことによって全部黒で潰れちゃってたのが、まあ、しっかり見えてくるようになるので、これね多分プレイじっくり見ていないとというか受ける雰囲気が変わるので、これによって。
And of course, I think one of the key changes that you can see is because we were able to place a light directly on top, you're able to see some of the details that would have been kind of hidden behind a shadow. And so I think with allowing for more lights to be placed, it will kind of give you a better impression of some of the atmosphere in some of these locations.
でさらにですね、こちら今の現在の状態のティターニアですね。
Next, you see Titania in her current in their current state.
でこれはシャドウです。シャドウのテストをお見せします。
So this is where we tested out how shadows appear.
まあ影に使ってるテクスチャーの解像度と計算を上げていくので、これぐらいくっきり見えていくようになると思います。
So this is where we tested the texture as well as the calculation formula behind how we're displaying the shadow underneath Titania. And we believe that we were able to improve the quality and the resolution up to what you see on the right image.
さらにですね、これ複数ライトも置いてみてるので、もう今の14だと左の環境しか作れないんですけど、複数ライトをさらにカラー変えたりしていくことで、右のようにね、かなり複雑なライティングの映像ができていくようになります。
But I like the graphical
And as you can see, we have multiple lights again in this updated picture, and then plus we put some colored lighting. So the background is exactly the same, and it was actually quite intricately built, but by having these different sort of lighting available to shine on it, you can see the complex details that was part of the structure.
ちなみにこれ左のティタニアのストーリー的には左の雰囲気がいいなって言ってるコメントがあるんですけど、はい、実はこの状態をさらにグレードアップさせたバージョンを BG チーム作ってきたんです、サンプルとして。ただ開発者目線で見ないと分かんないからライトの色を赤とかにして複数ライトが混ざってるっていう環境を作ってくれって言って僕がわざわざデザイナーがセンスよく統一してきたものをバラしたんで、なるほどデザイナーのセンスじゃないので、これね僕のプレゼン用だと思ってください。デザイナーの名誉のために言っておきます。デモ用ですね。はい。
Reggie shade looks like.
One thing I do want to clarify, because somebody pointed out they liked the look of the original Titania, where it has that sort of mood with all the muted colors. Yoshida I want to point out that this is the developers actually brought to me an example of what improved graphics would look like with that stayed within the color palette of the original picture, but that's very much in the developer's perspective, and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference of what has improved. That's why I had requested my designer to intentionally place red lights, something that's more obvious, just to show an example. So don't worry, this is not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to like destroy the atmosphere. The designer was very mindful about keeping the tone of the story, but I wanted a more like overt example. So just wanted to clarify that.
でここでちょっとね特に注目してほしいのが画面右の奥、上の方に見えてるステンドグラスのあたりをちょっと見ていただきたいんですけど。
And one part that I do want to point out, if you look at the upper part of the image, where the stained glass is.
これ左と右マップのポリゴンは何も変わらないんですね。テクスチャー解像度も変わってないです。
So just reiterating that we have not changed any of the polygons that are in the map layout. We did not improve any of the textures here.
なのでライトを変える複数置けるようになるだけで実は BG アーティストたちがこだわって作っていた箇所っていうのがより明確にちゃんと見えるようになるんですよ。左は全部影で潰れてるんですけどもともとちゃんと凹凸あるんですね。
And so this is what I'm trying to show with this image is that by being able to place multiple lights in a scene, we are able to showcase the details that our background artists have put into
There's
the
some people in
structure.
in
So
the chat saying
above these stained glass, you might
I'll
see
let
these
her
sort
finish
of like
first.
tiered sort of molding on top, and the picture on the left, it makes it unnoticeable because it's kind of drowned in the shadows. So by being able to place multiple lights, we're able to accentuate those details that our background team has put into the structure.
ちなみにバックグラウンドアーティストたちはライトの追加をやっていこうって言ったらめっちゃ喜んでました。
おー
Yeah, so
So when we were talking about adding multiple lights, the background team definitely had a very strong reaction to that.
よかった。
さあで次はですね
yeah, some people
こ
were
ちら
saying
は
that they're
金属
trying to go
表
back
現
to
を
1.0 graphics,
そ
but
の
I don't
質感
think
を
so.
上げ
It
ますという
seems
サンプル
pretty
になりま
clear
す。
that this is a lot
So
better.
next sample we want to show you is how we depict like the texture of the metal.
こちらもですねデザイナーの趣味というよりはですね悪趣味なぐらい変えてくれって言ってるのでそれをご承知おきください。
And of course, this again is supposed to be an example. And so I asked my designer to make it very gaudy at this point. So please understand it is not necessarily the designer's choice.
まあもともとやりたかったけどシェーダーがなくてできなかったのでまあこれぐらいゴールドをちゃんとやっていけますよと。
So up until now, we didn't have the proper shaders to apply, but we would love to improve the look of metallic surfaces. For example, gold here.
すごいですよね
コメン。トで吉田の家じゃんって書いてあるんだけど俺んちこんなんだったらもう仕事してないわ。
People are saying, "Oh, is this Yoshida's house?" I was like, "No, if I were that rich, I wouldn't be working."
でもこれ怖いもんで今まで我々は左を金だと信じてまいりましたけども、なんかもうブラスにしか見えないですよね。Yeah, actually we trusted left side screen is gold up until now, but now it only see brass, not gold, no more.
まあこういう形で金属の、質感強化っていうのもやっていきます。まあこれはねとても分かりやすい例じゃないかなと思います。
Thank you for that. But yeah, again, we're trying to make improvements to the material quality, so the look of metallic surfaces as well.
I
さら
think I
にです
like
ね
the old
続
one
いて
better for
は
this one.
マ
But that's just
ッ
me.
プに使えるメモリっていうのも、上限を上げてあげようと思っているので、それによってですねより多くのオブジェクトが配置できるようになっていきます。
And next was to look at the memory resources allocated to rendering a particular area on a map. And I'm looking to raise that sort of cap so that we can place more objects in a particular field.
まあこれ左側が現在よくちょっとマトシャと出会ったりするところですけど、こんな感じになってます。これ現在ですね。
So the left side, you may remember your first encounter with Matsuya.
Matsuya.
でそれがですね今回このぐらいまではいけるだろうと。
And with testing, we are seeing that we could possibly place more objects like these.
左と比べてですねやっぱりまず注目点としてはその1枚のループで作られてたその階段状になってる部分っていうのが、それぞれ素材違いをしかもこう組み合わせで、ずらして配置したりすることによってこう使い込まれた感とかより出せていける。このあたりはね
it looks
実
more
はすごく大きいと思い
realistic,
ます。
And so in the left, you may notice that it's just a repeat layered on, like a repeat layered on top of each other. But in the updated graphics, you can see that we are able to place objects not exactly like on top
yeah,
of each
they're-
other, but like
they're
you can
great.
shift it by a little bit. It'll allow for a more realistic depiction of the area has been in use. So this is actually quite, it helps with like the immersion.
で、あとはその床ですね、実は。床の上にもう一枚テクスチャーを重ねてブレンドさせることでですね、床のこう、ひび割れだったり、細かい、今だとね、メモリがないので、巨大な床を一枚貼ってどうにかってところなんですけど、そこをさらにこう、質感上げていけるようになる。
And then the floor or the ground, with the graphical update, would be able to add another layer on top to give it more texture and kind of blend it in. So like cracks in the ground. Previously, we wouldn't have enough memory, so we would just have to paste one giant floor and deal with it. But with the graphical updates, I think we'll be able to improve on the texture quality as well.
そしてですね、続いてがちょっと BG でお知らせする最後になるんですが、
Next is, I believe, the last set of samples that I've seen for the background elements.
こちらです。我々開発チーム最大の敵、自動草って呼んでるやつ。
これは。
So this is one of our pet peeves, arch nemesis, I should say. These are like these automatically generated grass.
これがですね、カットシーンのチェックをやってるとですね、割り込んでくるんですよ。自動で生やされるんで。
The bane
多
of
分カッ
every
トシー
single
ン作っ
developer.
たスタッフの時には生えてなかったんでしょうけど、
はは
僕がチェックする時は生えててですね、このジャギジャギがすごい入ってくるんですよ、カメラに。
And this is so, it takes away from cutscenes when it barges in. I'm sure when the cutscene team is creating the composition, they don't see the grass because this is just automatically generated after the fact. But sometimes it's like so close up and it's so pixelated, and that pixelation it bothered me very much.
今回もね、実はちょっと裏話ですけど、
はい、
まあ、エルピスで、ヘルメスにね、メーティオンにせがまれて、エルピスの花をこう見せるシーン、夜空でね、あるじゃない。で、ヘルメスがこう、仮面を外す。あそこがですね、何度チェックしてても、自動草が入ってくるんですよ。で、頭にきたんで、もう BG 班に頼んで、この辺もう草生やさない設定にしてくれって。
あ、なるほど。除草剤を撒いてしまったんですね。
So one behind the scenes comment I wanted to make when I was looking at the cutscene in Elpis, sorry spoilers, but Hermes, when he's talking to Meteon about, oh, I want to show you the flowers in Elpis, and he removes his mask, the grass automatically generates. And it gets in the way. So I got so mad. I told the background team, like, can you make it so that you don't have grass being generated in this part of the ground?
で、それがですね、今まだテスト中ですが、こんな感じになります。はい。
But that will be updated, hopefully. Again, we're still testing, but this is a sample image of what
Look
it
at
could
the
look
grass,
like.
luxury grass. Screw
まあ種類もね、
PvP, screw
複数
ultimates.
出
We
るよ
have
うになる
grass.
ので、これね、草原から上は何も手入れてないんですよ。向こうに見える木とか、全く今のままなんですけど、まあこんなに変わるですよね。
So, and plus, we are able to generate a variation of different grass or plants. And so, while we haven't added or modified anything in the background, like the trees and the field in the background have not been modified, the look of it is different because of how we can process these automated grass.
これはですね、自動草そのものを入れ替えるので、申請から行月まで全てのマップで自動で生えてる草がきれいになります。
And for this update, we will be replacing the system that generates these grass or plant life. And so this should be applied throughout all of the areas from A Realm Reborn throughout Endwalker.
さあ、ではバックグラウンド、実はねまだあるんですけど、ちょっとどんな表現バックグラウンドを上げていくかというのをお知らせしておきます。
We've done various other testings in terms of background elements, but allow me to summarize again.
まず先ほど、サンプルでも見ていただきましたライト配置数の追加、質感凹凸表現ね、雰囲気の強化っていうのがこれによって、行われます。
So again, we are going to be doing additional lighting points, so improved visual quality, depth, and immersion.
そしてですね、影の高解像度化、影のテクスチャーを高解像度にすることでですね、ちらつかなくなったりですね、影がよりメリハリが効くようになります。
And then higher resolution shadows. And so we'd be improving the texture of the shadow and how it's depicted so that it will allow for like flickering, decreased flickering.
ちょっと嘆きの海のマップを思い出していただきたいんですけど、あそこ実は雰囲気を宇宙空間にするために、ライトの距離をすごい遠くして、全体の暗さをこう締めるようなことをやってるんですけど、結果そうすると影がものすごく長く表示されるんだけど、テクスチャー解像度が低いがゆえにすごいじらついたりボケたりする箇所が結構多いんですよ。ただ雰囲気を優先したんで我慢してたんですけど、そういうところもですね、より綺麗にちらつかずに影が出てくるようになると思います。
So if you would recall Mare Lamentorium and how we were trying to depict or make it seem like you're in outer space and make sure that the lighting had been placed in a very distant location so that we emphasize that sort of darkness that surrounds you. Because of that, whenever you're on the moon, your shadow gets to be very long, but because the shadow textures were not optimal, you would see frequent areas that would cause the shadows to flicker or it could get blurry. So with the graphical update, we're hoping to improve so that those shadows would come out a lot crisper.
そして質感表現の向上です。これもシェーダーでですね、金属とか布とか、それ以外のちょっとシェーダーも今検討してます。
And then, of course, improve textures, which includes metals, fabrics, and we're also trying to consider what other elements can we improve.
そして最後にご覧いただいた自動配置植物の強化、高解像度にしたりですね、あと植生をね、種類を増やしたりしていきます。
So bottom line, there's a lot of graphic updates
Lastly,
coming for 7.1
more and better
or 7.0.
auto-generated greenery, which is increased resolution, variety, and etc.
で、画面全体にフィルター効果として非常に重要なアンビエントオクルージョンっていう機能だったり、フォグ、いわゆる霧をこう重ねるみたいな、それをフォグって呼ぶんですけど、これらに関しては今テストをしてるんですけど、まだちょっとサンプルをお見せできない状態です。
And we're also considering other effects or filters that would apply to the overall screen, including ambient occlusion and fog effects. Now, those are still being tested, but we couldn't produce results that we can present at this time.
めちゃくちゃ雰囲気出るし、めちゃくちゃクオリティ上がるんですけど、やっぱ画面全体にパフォーマンスの影響を与えるものなので、慎重にテストをして、しっかりこれだったら大丈夫だろう、その皆さんが極端に PC を買い替えたりとかしなくても、あとオプションでね、ちょっと切ることで軽くできるとかっていうのをちゃんと用意した上で、ここまでやれますよっていうのをちゃんとお見せできる。まだちょっと1ヶ月じゃそこまではいけないので、ただこれらも強化はしていきますので、また続報をね、お待ちいただければと思います。
And we totally understand that it will give it a different sense of atmosphere, or it would really improve the mood if we had those kinds of textures applied or those filters applied. But it does affect the overall performance of the game. So we will need to test it very carefully for sure. So we want to explore our options, but we also want to make sure that we are at a state where we're comfortable and not requiring for so much resources that players would have to like update their PC to an extreme, or be able to provide an option to shut it off if you want to optimize your performance. So I'm afraid we're not able to show you anything as of like a month or so of testing, but we're hoping to bring you updates further down the line. So yeah, if you could please stay tuned for that.
さてでは、グラフィックス第1次グラフィックスアップデートの、今日お伝えできる範囲としては、ここまでとさせていただきます。
Okay, so in terms of the graphical updates and the preparations that we're making for it, I think is all that I have for today's presentation.
さあでは続いて、3つ目なんですが、引き続き多くのアップデートこれまでと変わらずですね適切なスケジュールでお届けしていきますよというお話です。
So yeah, we will continue to provide regular updates on an appropriate schedule.
せっかくの機会ということでですね、ちょっと 6.1 から 6.5 まで現状決まっているものでお知らせできそうなものをお知らせしておこうと思います。
So I would like to share information that we know that we're going to have from 6.1 through 6.5.
まずパッチ 6.1 なんですけど、こちらねリリースタイミングが読み切れないと思うんですけど、皆さん4月には出します。はい。
Dude, the tower is getting a
6.
side quest series. That's cool, dude.
One series.
Aside from
I understand that
Hildebrand.
it's still kind of hard to see when it's coming, but we are looking at April at this time.
当然ですがメインクエストのアップデートっていうのは 6.1 から 6.5 まで新しい冒険をお届けしていこうと思ってます。
Of course, part of those updates will include the updates to the main scenario. We will have a new story with each patch installment.
そしてですね、全世界から帰ってこいと言われていた、事件や紳士ね、ついに帰還でございます。ヒルディブランドの行月編が、始まります。
Of course, we've heard many people ask for him to come back. This gentleman extraordinaire, Mr. Hildebrand, will be making his return.
Yes.
新しいサブクエストシリーズとしてですね、タタルの大繁盛商店というのが、連続として始まります。
And then, of course, a new series of side quests named Tataru's Grand Endeavor.
ちなみにヒルディブランドが最後に目撃されたのはパッチ 5.3 で実装された漆黒決戦ノルブラントで、エリディブスによって召喚された中に
いましたね。
確率でたまに出てくるんでね、あいつID の中に、あそこですね、最後に目撃されてるのが。
I believe the last time Hildebrand was seen was in patch 5.3, the Hero's Gauntlet. And this is a random occurrence, so you may or may not have seen him. But when you are doing your Warrior of Light battle, he is one of the people that is summoned.
さあ、どんな冒険とかね、珍道中になるのか、ぜひ楽しみにお待ちください。
But yeah, we hope you enjoy whatever odd adventures that he gets into.
どんどんいきます。パッチ 6.1 まだまだあってですね、アライアンスレイドミソロジー・オブ・エオルゼア12子にまつわる物語ですね、スタートします。
Continuing with patch 6.1 updates, we
Ultima's
will
Day?
have
No
our
real?
Alliance Raid,
Huh?
Myths of the Realm, Part 1, implemented. This is going to delve into or touch upon the mythos of the 12 gods.
そして新 PVP のクリスタルコンフリクトというのが、スタートして蛮族クエストアルカソーダラ続編があって、ゼツは本当お待たせしました、レイド大好き勢、本当お待たせしたんですが最新ゼツリリースします。
And so next is a new PvP, the Crystalline Conflict. We will have a new Beast Tribe quest, or like a new tribal quest, Arkasodara tribe quest in their dailies, and then a new ultimate content. Thank you so much for your patience. Our new ultimate duty will be implemented as of 6.1.
ゲームはね、アルテマになりますが、もうバランスチェックも終わっていて、結構むずいですよ。
I will be in the top 10.
And of course,
Recently,
we will
mark my words.
finally be reopening the Unreal battles. Ultima's Bane will be what's coming for the next battle. We are currently testing this out, but it's quite challenging.
アルテマウェポンってもともと結構初期に時間のない中で作られていて、IL が結構みんな上がってるんで、いろいろギミック無視できたりとか、被弾してもそんなになんですけど、レベル90でバランス取り直してきっちりアイテムレベル確定させたらね、やっぱ面白いしやりごたえあるなこれって感じでした。
Of course, when we first designed the Ultima Weapon fight, it was done in a rush. And then by now, I think people have raised their item level. So even if you take damage, it's not as bad. But with the Unreal battles, we have adjusted the boss fight so that it matches that of a level 90 player. So, and we've kind of finalized the item level. So testing it out, I enjoyed it. It was a very interesting battle, and it's very challenging for sure.
でも今ちょっとコメントであったんだけど、蛮族クエストっていう蛮族って呼び方やめたいなっていうコメントがあって、確かにそうだね。ちょっと考え直そう。メモっといてもらっていいかしら。はい。表現変えていきましょう。
There was a comment about the Beast Tribe quest, and it seems to not be very favorable to call it that. I know we're trying to shift it to say tribe quests, or like we're just calling it by the tribal name in the English, but we are going to try to figure out a better way to phrase it.
そして絶なんですけど、まあめっちゃ調整続いてるんですけど、多分一番難しいと思うんで、やる方は覚悟をしておいてください。
And I want to backtrack a little bit to the ultimate duty, the new ultimate duty, and we're balancing right now and making adjustments, but it's quite difficult. So if you're up for a challenge, that's fantastic. But yeah, it's going to take
challenge taken.
It's going to again be challenging.
実は 6.11 かな。
Oh, I'm sorry. Ultimate would be not 6.1 but 6.11, so it's probably not at the same time as the major patch.
メインシナリオをやったり、ハウジングの抽選に応募したりとかすると思うので、2週間空けて出す予定かな。
We are hoping that players would enjoy the main scenario first, and then 6.1 is also when we open up the Ishgard housing. So I'm sure people will want to sign up for like housing plots. So we're going to wait 2 weeks after the launch of the major patch and then release the ultimate duty.
まだまだあってですね、6.1、さっきお伝えしたメインクエスト ID のフェイス対応 2.0 範囲やって、それ以外のID もちょっとグラフィックスの調整とかいろいろやってます。
So continuing on with the 6.1 series updates, so the main quest, the trust system for A Realm Reborn patch 2.0 main scenario dungeons.
そして新しいリワードシステムとしてですね、キャラクターカードっていうのの、システム実装が、ドーンと始まります。
And then a new calling card style UI. So this is going to be a new reward type system that we plan to start implementing.
この辺の詳しい内容はね、3月4日からのまたパッチ 6.1 特集、パート1、パート2の方でお伝えしていきます。そしてお待たせしたロスガルの、新髪型対応がスタートとなります。
So for this calling card style UI, this is something that we'll cover in our next two live letters. There's one definitely planned on March the 4th, and we'll do like a 6.1 feature, part 1 and part 2. So we'll delve into details at that time. So next item would be new hairstyles for Frothgar. Thank you so much for your patience on this.
そしてハウジング、石ガールドハウジングが開き、お得意様取引はなんと
Housing Extreme.
お母様であるアメリア
I
ン
need
ス
a
編
house.
となります。
The next two
Will I
items
get it,
is
though?
the opening of Imperium or Ishgard housing, and then custom deliveries. You get to meet with Alphino and Alizé's mom, Amelians.
Oh, custom delivery for millions. Cool. I like
新
her.
PVP はいつですか。またちょっと PLL で詳しく言いますけど、6.15 を予定してます。はい。
We had a question about when is the new PvP going to go live. Again, we'll cover this in the upcoming other PLLs, but we are looking at 6.15 timing for that.
まあそれ以外にもですね、透滅戦など多数のものが、まあ透滅戦名前言えないですけど、ありますんで、ぜひご期待ください。ここまでがまあ 6.1 のざっくり概要です。はい。
And of course, new trials, we can't say what, but other assorted updates are planned for the 6.1 series.
そして続いて 6.2 ですが、こんな感じになってて、まあ一番の注目はやっぱりお知らせしていた、無人島開拓が 6.2 からスタートになります。
So next up is the 6.2 series. This is one of the large, like the anticipated content, I believe, is the Island
New
Sanctuary. That's
dungeon,
when we're going to
Criterion
start
with
opening this
variable
up.
difficulty.
昨日全体を一通りチェックしましたけど、めちゃくちゃでかいんで規模。だいぶね、組み上がってるんで、もう。
I had the opportunity to check the overall sort of content yesterday, and it's quite large scale, but I think it's coming along nicely.
またちょっと、今日は時間がないのであれですけど、詳しく説明する機会は取ろうと思います。基本的には外の世界と全く異なる、そこだけで完結できる遊びになってますし、まあ、ゆっくり本当にゆるくやれるので、楽しみに待っていただけると嬉しいです。
So I'm afraid we don't have the time to cover it today, but we will take the time at another opportunity so that we can explain the details of this. But it is going to be a different sort of area that you can enjoy, and it's a very self-contained sort of content that you can enjoy.
でまあ2.x 残り新生オルゼアの 2.x シリーズのメインクエスト ID を全部対応し、想定編にも突入します。あとは武器強化コンテンツの新しいシリーズをスタートしますとかですね。
So going back to the earlier bullet points, we will be applying the trust system for the 2.x main scenario dungeons, maybe partially into Heavensward. It says here.
ああそうだ、もうね多すぎて入れてないんですけど、ミラプリの拡張もね 6.1 から第1弾始まるんで言っときます。そういうの
よかった。
Oh, we also want to mention we will be expanding on glamours. Glamour、
Yes.
ミラプリのごめんなさい、ミラプリはグラマープリズムの方でしょうか。
ね、
言えない感じですか。
第1弾はプレート増やすをやっていく、まず第1弾。
So glamour related updates. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure how to phrase it, so I squeezed it out of Yoshida-san. We will be addressing and expanding upon glamour plates as part of the first glamour related updates in 6.1 series.
まあちょっと全部書ききれないけど、いつもの討伐透滅戦のノーマルと極があるとかいうのは、まあいつも通りやっていくので、まあその辺は書かれてなくてもあると思ってもらえると助かります。
And of course, we will have whatever content that you can expect in a patch update, so like new trials, etc. It's not written here because we couldn't fit it all in the slides, but yes.
収納数増やすトライもしてるから、ごっそりどっかのタイミングで増やします。
And we're also looking at like how to expand upon like the number of sets stored. So we're hoping to find an opportunity to do that update, like not an overhaul, but like an update on that as well.
そしてですね、さりげなく書かれてる新しいこの 6.2 から新しいバトルコンテンツ、タイプが全くこれまでと違うコンテンツを今開発中です。
And then the fourth bullet point, it's just kind of snuck in there as part of like the updates, but it's a new thing that we're trying to do.
Right, dungeons.
It's a dungeon with variable difficulty.
Yes.
これ難易度可変ダンジョンって今開発コードネームなんですけど、1人から4人でチャレンジできて、1人で行く、2人で行く、3人で行く、4人で行くっていうので、自動的にそれに合わせて難易度がコントロールされるっていうチャレンジ型のコンテンツになります。
And so the code name that we're using here is like Criterion Dungeons, but so you can attempt this with 1 to 4 people. And what makes it variable is that if you go in, depending on the number of people you go in with, so 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, the difficulty sort of
Never mind then.
varies. It will automatically scale. So it's like a content where players can sort of challenge themselves.
まあこちらも組み上がってはきてるんですけど、まだ調整いろいろチェックやってたりするんで、まあ 6. に近づいてきたらしっかり特集していきたいと思います。
It is coming along nicely, but and we're still performing checks on the content. So please stay tuned for new information as they become available when we can talk about 6.2.
そして 6.3 になるとですね、メインクエストの ID フェイス対応が争点編をここで完了させる予定です。
And then moving into 6.3, so
Deep Dungeons are
we'll
back?
continue to add
Really?
more trust NPCs. We
And we're
should
getting
be
2
able to
ultimates
address
in
the remaining
3 patches.
main scenario instanced dungeons in Heavensward.
でかいのはですね、世界中からですね、ディープダンジョンシリーズの新しいのがやりたいという、お声をたくさん頂戴していたので、今企画をやっている最中です。6.3 で、ディープダンジョンシリーズの第3弾実装予定です。
And then players from around the world had asked about when do we get a new deep dungeon. And so we are in the planning phases at this time. We're hoping to launch the 3rd in the series of deep dungeons at 6.3 series timing.
Might go
そしてです
into
ね、
my
すでに、
Necromancer
開
adventure
発
before that.
スタートして進んでるんですが、Z シリーズの第5弾を、6.3 でリリース予定です。
And then we are already starting to make plans for this, but we do intend on adding one more ultimate duty. So this will be the 5th one in the series.
そしてですね、6.2 でリリースされた、無人島開拓のアップデートももちろん行っていきます。
And then, of course, because we will be opening up the Island Sanctuary as of 6.2, at 6.3 series timing, we will continue to update it.
でまあ、4と5はちょっとパッチ 6.4 と5はまとめてのご紹介になっちゃいますが、この4と5でグレン編のメインクエスト ID のフェイス対応を全部終わらせて、まあ、これで、ストーリー上に登場する ID は、全部対応が終わる予定です。
And then next page covers both 6.4 and 6.5 series. But by this time, we aim to complete the trust system implementation into all of the Stormblood main scenario dungeon series. And so that should get through all of Stormblood.
で難易度可変ダンジョンと呼んでる新しいバトルコンテンツシリーズの第2弾とか第3弾も入れていきますし、無人島開拓の開拓エリアを追加したりっていう予定ももう当然ね、我々長期計画で進んでるので予定されてます。
And then, of course, our Criterion Dungeons will see an update. We should have numbers 2 and 3 implemented. And then for Island Sanctuary, at this time, we want to expand upon the area. So we'll have an additional area.
でですね、例えば青魔同士のレベルキャップをどのタイミングにする、解放どのタイミングにするのとか、そういう状況を見ながら調整しているものに関してはどうしてもまだ言えないので、それらもちゃんとどっかのタイミングでやっていきますんで、またそれぞれですね、パッチの特集をお待ちいただければありがたい。やらないとかいうわけじゃないんで、まだ詰め切れてないものはちょっと言えないのでさすがに。まあこのあたりはもう全部確定しているのでお知らせして。
And I hope they give us an achievement for, having all 5
I'm
ultimates.
sure some of you might be wondering about, okay, when is the next time the Blue Mage is going to have their level cap increased? And some of these items, we need to monitor the situation. And so I'm afraid we aren't able to determine exactly when this is going to happen, but we do intend on doing it. We will share more information when we are going to do like a patch specific like updates live stream. Please note that even if it's not written in the document, it doesn't mean that we're not going to do it. So yeah, there might be information that we're still in the planning phases and we weren't able to solidify at this time. So we will continue to look at the various existing content and provide updates when we can.
まあなんかパッチ情報を出すとみんな細かいところあれはどうこれはどうってやっぱなっちゃうね。まあ皆さんが思ってることは基本的にやっていくんで大丈夫ですよ。
I see that people in the comments are talking about various granular areas of patch updates, and I think it's safe to say that things that we know people are expecting in a regular update will more than likely be included. So I want to make sure that don't be worried.
まあアルカスソーダラの次のはどうなるの種族ってどうなるのとかも
So
も
they're
う全
saying
部
we're
決ま
gonna
って
get like new
ます
area like
ちゃんと
Gosha,
毎パッチや
but
って
they
いく
don't
ので
know yet how it's
まああれか
gonna
な
be.
これかなって思いながら待っていただけると
Hopefully.
嬉しいです。
And the tribal quest beyond Arkasudara is I'm sure a mystery, but we have a plan. We do have like
I mean,
which,
it's not a mystery. It's the leopards
group
and
to
then
focus in on, and we do want to have content available per each of the patch. So it'd be great if you could wait or not wait, but like
something in
speculate,
Chilean
kind of imagine which tribe will we be focusing in on.
あとゴールドソーサーも予定してるんですけど4になるか5になるかまだ決まってないんでちょっと待ってください。
And we do intend on making gold saucer updates, but we still haven't determined if it's going to be 6.4 or 6.5. So that's why we're not mentioning it at this
Chilean
time.
instead of
さあというわけでまあ
Garlemald.
まあ変わらずですねもりもりでやっていきますよというお知らせでした。
But yeah, just wanted to go through all of these roadmaps just so that we know that we plan to continue providing very hefty updates.
ただですね一個皆さんにこれを踏まえてですねちょっとお知らせをさせてください。
But with that being said, allow me to make one announcement.
メジャーパッチのサイクルについてです。
And this is regarding the major patch cycle.
これまでですね申請スタートからですねまあずっとできるだけこの 3.5 ヶ月に1メジャーパッチ配信っていうのをまあ目標に掲げてやってきました。
So of course, since the relaunch as A Realm Reborn, we've tried to keep this pace of one major patch update per every 3.5 months.
でこれをですね本当申し訳ないんですが2週間プラスしてですね4ヶ月にさせてください。
And I'm terribly sorry to ask you of this, but we need to extend it by 2 weeks, and so we want to change it so that it's one major patch every 4 months.
That's fine.
でこの2週間って何かっていうとですねまあ我々開発内では実装期間っていうのと調整期間っていうので大きく2つあるんですけど、この実装期間にプラスあと1週間、それから調整期間にプラスあと1週間の時間をいただいて、マイメジャーパッチを 3.5 ヶ月でなんとかやってきたのをちょっと4ヶ月、プラス2週させていただけると助かります。
So of course we have periods of our development cycle where it's development and then implementation and various adjustments, fine-tuning that we do. So those 2 weeks that we ask of you for your patience is 1 week for additional implementation and then 1 week additional for fine-tuning. So that makes it that 3.5 months now turns into 4 months.
でですね、夏季休暇期間とか、まあ、我々やっぱりサマーバケーションスタッフに渡したりですね、年末年始やっぱり家族とねゆっくり過ごしてほしいっていうのがあるので、まあ、夏季休暇期間とか年末年始の場合には、まあ、これにプラス1週間ねさせていただくことがあるかなと思います。
And in addition to that, we do have breaks, like summer vacation or summer holidays, New Year's holidays. I'm sure people have family that they would visit over the holidays, and so for those holiday seasons, we might see an additional like one
One last
week's
straw.
not delay, but like 1 week's time added as well.
まあやっぱりここまでその前半の10年間っていうところでもお伝えしましたけど、相当みんなの開発チーム運営チームのモチベーションというところに頼ってやってきたところがあるなと思っていて、まあそれは僕自身のこう
Oh,
稼
there
働
they
の
take
高
vacations.
さも含めてなんですけど、
Dirty,
まあ
dirty
休みたいというよ
developers.
りはやっぱり適切にみんな健康で健やかに開発に取り組むことでよりクオリティも上がっていくだろう。でもまあ事実足りてない無理をしてきたっていうところもあるので、ちょっとそれが理由になってます。
As I explained in the first half, when we were looking back at our first 10 years, we really depended on the motivation of each of the developers that are on the team, and me included. I was moving around and very hands-on with my team, but looking at our schedule and how we work, I do want my team to be healthy and be able to sort of maintain a good level of quality because they are taking the necessary breaks. And to be honest, there were areas where we might not have performed as well as we should have because some of us may have been pushing too hard. So that's the reasoning behind why we want additional time.
でまあ非常にね皆さん優しいコメントいただけてるんでとても嬉しい。特にスタッフの健康とかね気遣っていただけてるんでとても嬉しいんですけど、まあ、これまで 2.0 からねなんとか 3.5 ヶ月でこうやってきたこの実装10何週調整何週みたいなのでまあやってきたんですけど、ちょっとね比較を持ってきました。
And thank you so much for the kind comments regarding our staff and making sure that you're showing your concern to our staff members. It really warms my heart, and I'll make sure to relay that. But considering what we've been doing in terms of providing an update every 3.5 months since 2.0, and we work with a schedule of like such and such weeks for implementation and whatnot. So we put together this comparison chart for you to take a look.
まあこれまで、企画、開発、調整、デバッグっていうのを、まあ、3.5 ヶ月でやってきてたんですけど、
Of course, our development largely is broken down to planning, development, adjustments, and debug. And this is some of the numbers that we've pulled up.
まあ、パッチ 3.3 の時が左の列、5.3 の時が右の列です。
So the column on the left is patch 3.3 series timing. And then the column on the right is patch 5.3 series.
Yeah.
まあ、コンテンツ数がねそこまで極端にってわけじゃないんですけど、やっぱジョブ数がまずね11だったのが18になってたり、
Yeah, it's a lot
ボ
of
ス数が
hours
作って
of
ボス数
cutscene
が
then.
もう17から23って増えてるんですね。これ当然調整コストめちゃくちゃ増えてるんで増えましたな。
So, I mean, the number of content, like types of content, may not have varied over the years. But if you look at, say, like the number of jobs, from patch 3.3, 11 jobs, we've now jumped up to 18 as of 5.3, which means a lot of different balance adjustments for those. Number of bosses have gone from 17 to 23.
もちろんね開発スタッフっていうのも皆さんからいただいた月額課金で、まあ、どんどん採用してどんどん増やしていてチーム規模も当然上がってるんですけど、じゃあ人が増えればそんなに簡単に僕ら工場製品作ってるわけじゃないので量産が上がるかっていうとやっぱりそうではない。トレーニングも必要、経験も必要。やっぱりそんなスーパーエースたちが中川とか須藤とかがバンバン育っていくわけじゃないので
Just a quick thing, guys. The stream has been going for almost 2 and something hours now. I didn't expect the live layer to last so long, so after this section is over, I'm going to probably end the stream for today. The other part of the stream should just be questions and answers for 6.0. So it's not as informative, so I'll just leave it at that. For all you guys, thank you for joining me today. I really wanted to get some early knowledge on what we can expect from 6.1 and onwards. So I guess they at least gave us that. I was worried they would spend so much time on the graphic section of the game and not give us information, but I think I was wrong to worry. So it's good to know they have all these planned for the future. And I'm glad that we're going to get a lot of stuff from 6.1. We're going to get the PvP maps, we're going to get the new ultimate, we're going to get the new housing. So I'm really excited about all of that. And I'm going to be keeping up with that. So thank you guys for joining me. The rest of this part is just explaining what I'm taking breaks probably. So I'll leave this stream here. And I'll catch you guys next stream. If you want to follow me for Pokemon or Final Fantasy XIV or Magic the Gathering Arena, all of you are welcome. Let me know in the comments if you want more of that type of content. Otherwise, catch you guys later. Stay healthy. EienKibou signing out. Bye-bye.